Hey, welcome everybody back to Jibber Jabber Podcast. It is Sunday night and we have if I could have gone back in time and told myself while watching The Gate as a child that one day I'll get to speak to the director, I probably would have thought it'd be in one of those weird vending machine moments where you're trying to get past to get a packet of crisps. But to have him on the show is something else, J-Mac. And before we even tell your little story about how we got him on the show, I just literally we just discovered there that J-Mac didn't even tell him like it was a visual show. He thought it was like one of those podcasts, man. And that's
those old-fashioned things that were still called Jibber Jabber Podcast. What do you want me to do? It's a podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, before we bring Tibor on, we really need to talk about the story as to how you and Tibor connected. Because I'm sitting there on the couch, right? We're talking about how amazing this movie is, and it's a big part of our childhoods, right? It's a movie that we've spoke about many times on this show, and I don't think we ever thought we'd ever have Tibor on. But we were sitting talking about it. I'd been watching it on Blu-ray, showing my wife the trailer, and you were actually watching it at the exact same time. Talk about serendipity, but that was so strange that you were actually...
Yeah. And
right?
I texted you saying that just so you know, I've just reached out to the director of The Gate, and you sent me a screenshot of you watching it. I was like, okay, this is serendipitous, right?
I was like, what's the chances?
And then
what?
Yeah, then some stuff happened. Basically, I tried to call using a certain app, because I managed to find him on there. I tried to call him, and it just said, you cannot call this person. I was like, oh well. And then I got a text back saying, call again. I was like, oh my God. So he wants to talk to me. This is cool. And then you're like, do it, man, do it. So I did it. I called in, and he's like, hey, how you doing? My name's J-Mac. I've got a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And he said, hi, that's cool. Why do you have Ron Perlman's picture as your profile? And I said, well, apparently I look like him. And he's like, it's just that I'm friends with Ron. I thought it might have been him. I was like, oh, man. I said, listen, I will hang up the phone right now if you feel like I've tricked you into taking this call. But he was so gracious and so kind to actually give me his time a few nights ago, and we're really happy to have him on. I can't wait to have the conversation.
Absolutely. When you told me that, I actually was barely laughing for so long. I was like, what is the chances? What is the chances that he actually answered your call? But to think that you were actually Ron Perlman's hilarious. But I do see the striking resemblance. But
I can't, but everybody else can, so I just went with it.
Yeah, well, I'm actually so excited, and I can't wait to just have him on. So what we're going to do, I'm going to play the trailer quickly to The Gate. So you guys, anybody that hasn't seen The Gate, you need to check it out. It was on Amazon Prime. I don't think it is now, but you can get the Blu-ray off eBay. So make sure you get The Gate. I'm going to play the trailer here, and then we're going to bring Tibor on. Okay. Takes me back, ladies and gentlemen. Tibor Takács.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, how was it for you there, just watching that trailer back after so many years?
It always, I always have a place in my heart for that, and and I appreciate all this attention it's getting lately. And it's all good. It's all good memories. It's like the good old days,
Yeah, I mean, for us, like, when you talk to a friend that has similar movie tastes, like this is how we started the podcast, was we basically both love movies, and we always talk about a lot of our favorites. And The Gate, for how long, even before we started the podcast, The Gate was one of those. It's like, and you know what's funny? Like, growing up, I'd spoke a lot about The Gate to a lot of different friends who had never heard of it, and I'm like, how? And then I think I said something like, "You've been bad," and J-Mac got it straight away, and I was like, let's be friends. Like, we totally, it's a way to bond with someone when you can quote a movie like The Gate. And my sister, I've got a younger sister, and because when you're a kid, and because we were younger and we were watching a horror movie, it was maybe like our cousin or a brother that would put it on for us because they're a lot older than us, and we would watch it. And I remember it was quite scary when I was a kid. The face.
Well, how old were you? How old were you?
I must have been about 6.
Oh my God!
You went for it with a young, the young start.
Right?
I don't think I was about 10 or 11 the first time I seen it. I think.
That's okay, but 6 is a bit, oh my God.
Well, I had a lot of cousins. I used to spend a lot of time with my cousins, and they were all a lot older than me, so they had the VHS tapes. And I remember, I never actually saw the VHS tape. It was like when you're kicking about with all your cousins and stuff, it's usually you just got the cassette tape.
Yeah.
And I would watch it, so I never knew the name of the movie when I was a kid.
Sorry.
That's all good.
That's normally my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I'm on the podcast. It started already. I have to hang up. Text me.
He's a busy man. We have to let it go. He's a busy
Absolutely.
man. So I remember loving the movie, and the only way I could communicate to my sister about this movie is we would always say, "You know that movie? Which one? You've been bad." And straight away we knew exactly what we were talking about. That quote, and it was years later when I went online, and I was like, "Right, how do I find this? A movie about a big hole open up in the garden. You've been bad." And I was introduced to all these different fans of The Gate, and from there it's just always kind of been a favorite for us.
Cool. But you were a little young. I mean, that was not intended for your
Oh no! Hey, this is all my fault. I know this.
It's child abuse, you know.
Yeah,
your cousins were using up your innocence. Actually, wasting your innocence.
That's actually one of the questions we had for you. Is what age group do you think, or do you know this was aimed at the time you were making it? I mean, I know that over in the States it got a PG-13 rating.
Yeah,
at that time in the UK, we didn't have a rating like that. We had PG, and then it jumped straight to 15, which is essentially an R rating over there. So we didn't have that middle ground. I think the first movie to get that over here was Batman, which is a couple of years later. So was it aimed at 12, 13-year-olds, or was a little bit younger, older?
Yeah, it was just 11, 10, 11, the age of the kids in the movie, basically. You know, it was a kind of coming of age story. It's like, growing up story. I think 6 is definitely too young. But, we tried to trim it so that it was aimed at kids. It's a kid's story. And that's part of the sort of marketing confusion, if there was any. I mean, it was pretty successful. Maybe it wasn't as successful as it could have been if it was aimed more accurately, but was it possible to aim it more accurately? But, people were thinking, oh, this is a horror movie, like Freddy or something, or, some sort of slasher. People who weren't that sophisticated might think that it was some sort of adult movie, and that's kind of wrong. It was supposed to be a nostalgic movie for adults and an exciting movie for kids. Like, parents could bring their kids to a horror movie that was tame enough, more like a Grimm's fairy tale. That's all. That was the aim.
Heather Dow says, "Yep, around 10 years old when I saw this film. It's the film that made me scared to look under the bed." I mean, I was 6 and I wasn't scared to look under the bed.
But see, that's where these things, that's where your mind can play tricks on you. Because I remember when I was 5 and 6 and I used to watch Halloween all the time when I was that young, and then all of a sudden I got to 7 and 8, and then I started finding it really scary. So I think there's a point where your brain can't kind of compute why things are scary, and then eventually it clicks. And I think that's why you survived that mental scarring.
Well, I can tell you guys that when I was 5, I think I saw Snow White, and I was scared shitless. Like really.
The scene with the trees and stuff. That's pretty terrifying. Man, Pinocchio had some messed up stuff in it as well. There's a lot of messed up stuff in the old Disney films.
Even to this day, I remember the relief I felt when I hit the daylight outside the theater.
It's a crazy one. I watched it just recently. I got the Blu-ray version of it, and the picture was amazing. But and because there was nothing to compare it to back then, when I was watching it with another friend, and we both were like, it has a feel like the Poltergeist and also Stranger Things vibe. Like Stranger Things are kind of replicating that. And there is a specific feel to the way that movies were done in the 80s that fit. Like for me, when I put The Gate on, with just Stephen Dorff riding up his his neighborhood, and he's coming up on his bike and he goes into his house, you get a sense of something that's missing now in horror movies, or even so much horror adult kind of movies aimed at kids. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, because you must have directly tried to create that. Like, there's such a feeling of warmth.
I think it's called. I call it. I have a name for it. Enchantment.
Enchantment, right? That makes so much sense.
You know, like to me, that best describes this sort of idea of, oh my God, what the hell?
It's Ron Perlman.
Yeah. What the hell are you doing?
Why are you using J-Mac's picture, Ron?
Yeah. 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 You explained what the story with that is, how you're using his picture on your ID. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm going to change that.
Yeah. You know, maybe you look like a young Ron, maybe, you know, like there's a little slight resemblance. Anyways, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the enchantment idea. Yeah. And I always felt that fairy tales, like, you know, when you're a kid, you're sort of intrigued and scared, but interested in the like grim fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of enchantment also kind of opens up your mind to the possibilities, or introduces you to the uncanny in some way, you know, like it allows you to interpret things of this world that you might not know about. It opens your mind. That's how I feel. And there's like, some people say that this idea of enchantment is a developmental necessity for children to, you know, have emotions. They develop their emotions and become adults. This enchantment plays a part in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a famous book, Bruno Bettelheim. It's sort of a child psychology book, I think. I think he's a French author, and it might be called The Need for Enchantment, or the chapter was called The Need for Enchantment, and it explains it. You know, it's part of your, you know, a child's development.
I think Stranger Things has kind of captured that. And that's the first time that we kind of seen that since the 80s. Because you do have that in E.T., you have it in The Gate, you have it in Poltergeist. It is definitely there. And it's something, it reminded me of like a Treehouse of Horror kind of episode of The Simpsons. And I love it.
I think the enchantment thing you're talking about is 100% true. I mean, that's why we've got Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Things have to be magical for you to be interested in them as a child, I think. And then eventually you kind of figure things out. But I love the fact that, I mean, I believed in Santa Claus until I was way too old, man. I think I asked him for something last year, but I think it was about 10 when I stopped. So I soaked up the enchantment, and that this film is one of those ones that really sticks in there as well.
What kind of movies was it for you yourself, Tibor? What kind of movies did you grow up watching that kind of inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Oh boy, lots of European movies, because my mother went to film school. I was lucky in that way. She went to film school in the 1950s in Hungary. And she had like a taste for, you know, the new wave, the French new wave. So all through my childhood, like when I was old enough to see movies, that's what I was kind of raised on. So I had a sort of a connection to European cinema. I think, you know, some days people would call that, like these days, sometimes they call it slow cinema, but. You know, I always appreciated that, and the sort of psychological kind of, you know, themes that were in those. And I think I kind of brought a little bit of that sensibility into what I was doing, and I always do. I still do. You know, there is some odd things in The Gate that sort of, when I think about it, harken back to that influence possibly. But along with, I'm from Montreal, Canada, which was a French city, and it was more European. And then we moved to Ontario, which is an English city. And there we lived downtown, and we lived near a lot of theaters. So suddenly I was thrown into the 1970s kind of Hollywood, you know, the new wave of the Hollywood at the time. So that was a completely different, mixed in with some bad '60s comedies and things like that. But that's what I would say that I had both sides.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And did you aspire to get into making movies? I know obviously your mother was in that world. Was it always something you knew you were going to do? Yeah.
She probably planted the seeds and subliminally led me down the path to, fulfilling her dreams. But,
Yeah.
I always had that. And, I didn't really ever, I thought it would be very difficult. And coming from Canada, it's not Hollywood, and there isn't such a natural, path that one would take. I didn't know anybody. My family didn't know anybody in that world because my mother had left that. She never pursued it. She never graduated. Actually, she got kicked out.
Like there's a story there.
But so anyways, at some point I thought, well, I should be a lawyer. Like that's what I was sort of interested in, law and history and philosophy and all that stuff. And it was too difficult to try to get into film, and it was my hobby. And back then I thought, well, you know what? It's a hobby. It's fantastic. It's great to have a hobby. I really love it. And would I want to be paid for it? Oh my God, that could be awful. And then so slowly it kind of evolved, and I started making little films, and people started to pay me, and then they just got bigger and bigger. And then I traveled to Los Angeles because of it, and just connections made. And
what was your first foot into the Los Angeles doors?
I did an experimental feature. Like I got into theater. That was my, while I was making my short films, there was, opportunities to do drama and, sort of flex your dramatic muscles in theater. And I played around with that. And there was lots of support, like there was lots of government support for theater. And so I had a friend who was my partner at the time. We developed a bunch of theater things, and he's the one that wrote the grants, and he got some good grant money. And one of those plays we turned into a movie, which got us some notice. And then, we gotta sell this thing. Where do they buy movies? Oh, we got to go to, Hollywood.
Wow.
So that started it all. So I'd say since 1976, 77. Maybe 78, kind of, that's when I started to go to Los Angeles to pitch things. And at the same time, I was involved in music, sort of the punk scene. And, we're trying to put together a show that would tour North America. We had like this band that I was sort of involved with called the Vile Tones and the Ramones and Teenage Head. We were going to bring them to Los Angeles, but they were just a little too far behind. In the day, they were saying, "Oh, that stuff's that's not going to last. That's just a little short little fad. It's it's too grotesque. People aren't it's repugnant. People aren't interested in that." And, at the same time, we were selling our movie, and learned a lot about the business. Had a chance to meet with Roger Corman. He liked our film. He just said, "Hey, it's not exactly for me," but he put us on to some other people, and that one thing led to another. Eventually, we were able to sell it and sort of cover the money that we had spent on it. So just broke even with it, but it's very experimental. I mean, it's pretty strange.
To break even on something experimental is very impressive.
Break even is a success. Okay, well, we almost made it for nothing because we took the theater stage play that was financed, basically. And, that kind of, was subsidized. We took that and turned it into a movie using friends and favors, and, it was crazy. I think we spent about $5,000 cash to get it in the can. Back
just
then.
making it work.
Yeah. And then we had an investor come in who saw the film. He was an artist, like a neon artist who had money, and he put up about 20 grand, I think. So 30 to finish it, and then we made back that 30 basically. With the VHS sales and things like that. So, and it had a little bit of a theatrical even in different places, and it played a little bit festivals. I didn't know that much about film distribution back then, but we learned a lot from, trying to promote it. We didn't promote it enough, I don't think. I don't know if we entered it in enough festivals. Like nowadays, people enter in hundreds of festivals.
Yeah.
We might have entered it in like 5 different festivals. It played in 2, things like that.
Yeah, that's what we do live in an age where it's much easier to get your stuff out there. I mean, this podcast itself is a kind of testament to that. So the fact that you broke even on a film in the 70s is awesome, especially for your first kind of venture into that.
Yeah. I read somewhere that you were offered a Nightmare on Elm Street 4 Dream Master.
Oh, that was much later. That was after The Gate.
Yeah.
After I Madman. When I was finishing I Madman, that's when that came up. But that was just, like I think it says in the trivia, whatever, the lore, they said, well, we're going to shoot in a month or something. And I'm going, oh man, like the crazy amount of effects. Like there's no way that I could prepare that, like you guys should delay the show. And of course they didn't hire me, but they hired a different guy. Same thing happened, but they delayed it like for months, like they pushed the production. Like that's where I learned, oh man, just say yes.
Right, yeah. And then delay the production.
yeah, things will work out, like they're not crazy. They're not gonna,
I mean, the hats off to you for the effects and The Gate, like, because I was sitting and I actually, one of the guys that works with us when we're doing any kind of projects, he works and he does a lot of stop motion stuff. And he was looking at the scene with the minions, and he was like, "Is that stop motion?" But then we kind of, and you can answer this for us, but I was like, "That's not stop motion. That's dudes in suits," because the way they moved was far too human-like to be stop motion.
The idea of all the effects is like, we used an encyclopedia of effects, rotating each gag, the technique of each gag, just to keep it, so you think you got to figure it out. Well, you don't,
Yeah. So,
so Randy Cook, our sort of our special effects maven that we had, he was really the brilliance behind all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, one shot in particular where the worker man falls over and then just turns into the minions. This was it 1986? That shot is seamless. It looks fantastic even now. And I think was there a lot of forced perspective work as well?
Yes. Do you know that magazine Cinefex?
No, we probably should.
It's a special effects magazine. I think they're still around. Cinefex, and there is a special issue that has a chapter on all the details. In there.
Right. Cinefex.
Cinefex. I think you could find it in their index or something. It's pretty detailed. You can really see a big story about how it was all put together.
That's insane.
A lot of it was, it took a lot of production design, like building these huge sets where the forced perspective could work, and people were playing the little minions,
Yeah. I mean, what was those big sets, I'm assuming, aren't particularly inexpensive. I mean, what was the budget on the film? Can you remember?
It was $3.5 million.
$3.5 million.
That is considered a low budget, though, isn't it?
Yeah, back then, kind of a, relative. Like we had a lot. We had studio. We had I think it was 20 days to shoot. We had set building. We brought people from all over to put it together for us. There was some money. But it wasn't a big budget at all.
I mean, kudos to what you managed to do with it.
Yeah, maybe today it would be the equivalent of 8 or something like that. 8 or 9. Yeah,
8, 12 million, something like that. But
yeah,
I mean, sometimes you look at a film now with a $12 million budget and it looks like shit. There's no the money just disappears. So to do what you did with that money is really impressive. And one thing, now this is something that I've discussed it a few times with people. There's a certain shot where they're looking into the gate, or I think it's covered with the other gate.
Yeah, a little wooden structure.
Yeah,
that you pull over it. Yeah.
And you can see this light coming through. Now, this light is a sort of pinkish purple color that you don't see enough anymore. I love anytime I see that color, it takes me back to my childhood. It was in all the movies back then. It was the color, the dark crystal was that color, right? Now, I seen that color appear in a movie the other day, and it actually brought a tear to my eye. It's in The Rock's new movie, Jungle Cruise. That color showed up, and I actually got a tear in my eye. It's so nostalgic, and I was so happy to see it in the gate again.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love it. It's again, but one of the reasons we love to go back and watch The Gate is it does have a lot of stuff on it you just don't see now. Everything's kind of moved on, and as well, I was having this conversation with my friend that I watched it with. Everything nowadays is all just they're doing these effects, that green screen and all the CGI, and there's nothing really. A lot of stuff that you're watching, you just didn't get a sense that it's. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a sense there that you just don't feel.
There's an artificial thing that's happening. You think you're in a video game, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
It's another reality that we've come to know. Back in the day, I don't know. It's just it feels like the physics are sort of correct. Like you kind of relate to the physics of it all.
Absolutely. Yeah. We remember we spoke to Nick Maley, who was the guy that created Yoda. I don't know if you've ever worked with Nick. No. And he basically worked for the Henson Company. So he's created all these amazing different puppets that he controls as well in the movies.
Right.
And he was saying that it's an actual shame that a lot of guys like him aren't getting the work anymore in Hollywood and all these movies that would benefit from that kind of thing. You know, like just being able to kind of have it there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the way he described it was if you look at Yoda in like episode 1 with the CGI, it costs like $6 million to make his face do that. I mean, it's a shame, and it's going to be a lost art soon. I'm a huge fan of practical effects. I think CGI has its place, but I think CGI should be for details, not for what's right in the front of the screen. So it's again, this film was just it harks back to the good old days for me. I mean, I remember as a kid finding it pretty scary. Right, I think it did scare me at the right age, not 6, Kevin. But there were two things. Even I watched it again last night just to make sure I was on on my game here, and there's 2 scenes that still actually make me go, that's really horrible. And it's the worker man scene, or the first worker man scene when he comes out. That's horrific. And also
the other one's the parents.
Well, no, the workman takes the kid in the wall. Yeah,
that's horrible. And then the scene where Terry comes back as that little ghoul with his big teeth. That I actually jumped. I laughed at myself. I said to my wife, I just shit myself a little. So it still works. I'm a 36-year-old man, and it still works.
I read somewhere, and I think this is a fact actually. The original script for this movie was quite darker, wasn't it? More Children of the Corn.
Maybe it had less of the humor that it had. I don't know about the darkness.
It was said that
it didn't have a spiritual darkness per se, or
I think
maybe
it was more of the minions dragging neighbors out to the streets and killing them.
Right. Well, yeah, maybe more violence.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
I can't remember the original all that much, but I had a feeling that like these producers, they really wanted something that was commercial and would tap into a kind of zeitgeist that was ever if there was one at the time. And I always felt that kids digging a hole in the backyard is really a children's kind of story, or a young youth story. And I thought that we should make it sort of appropriate for them, as much as we can, and tone down some things, maybe sharpen some other things. Worked on the humor, like the minions. They've got to be scary, but you're not sure,
You can see the wee dude at the bottom. It's almost like he's saying, "Hey, we come in peace." PCs maybe. I think it's class that if you were to refer to, like I say, a scary minion, and everybody thinks of the wee Despicable Me minions, but this was our childhood's minions. Minions changed.
Yeah, I mean, just look at that thing in the bottom right hand corner.
Yeah,
that's not pleasant.
no.
The scary parts for me was the whole, and you notice this about 80s movies as well. Parents always used to just leave.
Yeah.
And it was all right to leave your kids in the house. And J-Mac, you actually text me. He texted me the other night and he's like, I'm laughing my head off. At the end of the gate, everybody's sitting like everything is fine. Like, this is great. It's over now. The house is absolutely trash. Like, that's just such an 80s thing, isn't it? House is absolutely trashed, and everybody's like feeling great now that it's all over.
I mean, I remember as a kid panicking if I'd spilt some juice on the floor and it was going to stain the carpet. That house was absolutely fucked.
Oh yeah.
The sequel should have been the parents arriving home and they're going, "You're never gonna guess." That's a good premise for another horror movie.
Yeah.
The gate 3, the parents come home.
Well, the idea of abandonment is, a very strong theme in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just reinforced, like, this whole overall view that the parents are not really part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Was sort of important to making it work and scary for kids, I think, or spooky.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you work with the writer to change things, or did you pretty much make the film that was written? Did you add your own flair in places?
Well, it's more like, I added my own flair in places. It was a great script to start with. It had good relationships in it, and one of the things that I brought, I guess, a few of the things that I brought to the story, and Michael and I, we worked on it together. I wanted to do, I think the original investigation was in a library, and the whole sort of heavy metal, backwards masking thing, some of my music background, I kind of, I wanted to have something like that in it. And of course, it's all bogus. It's like Terry's all confused about it. And the other thing too, I always felt that having a sister, because I had a sister, so I felt having a sister somehow more kind of opens up the sort of emotional floodgates. Like, you can't really be part of her life when she she leaves you. There's no, it's difficult. A brother, the big brother is a different relationship to an extent. Sister might be more like a mother, but then you're being abandoned again. It's like, so I don't know. I just felt it would be stronger if it was a sister, and it'd be more fun and interesting, less testosterone. Maybe film needs a balance.
Yeah. Then one of my favorite parts of the movie is when, there's two, and it's the exact same lines being said in both of them. "You've been bad," and it's when Stephen Dorff grabs his dad's face. It turns into like egg yolk, and then it falls.
That's disgusting, by the way.
Oh yeah.
That's a horrible effect. I think that and the telephone effect.
Yeah,
the telephone effect reminded me of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm assuming it was a similar technique that was used. But the face, can you tell us about that?
Well, it was just a sculpted face that Randy made, and then he made a bag of guts, basically, some strange fruit, and it was all trickery, sleight of the hand, kind of very fast. because he never got a really good face that was filled with goo. So it was quick cuts and transition, and drop a mess of stuff onto the ground that looks like a face.
Dad, your faces fell off.
Yeah, but I think the mother laughing really kind of makes it.
Yeah, she was creepy.
Very creepy, like your own mother. Yeah, laughing at all this.
Yeah,
and then, the father with the missing face. That's like, whoa.
I think when you watch this, see, this is one of these movies that, I mean, I think at my age and Kevin's age-ish, if you were to watch it for the first time now, it's one of these movies that you'd think, right, okay. But if you put yourself in a kid's shoes, watching that
back in the day,
that can be pretty scarring, man. I'm just happy we don't need to pay for psychotherapy over here.
Do you know what? It's really cool, and this is very cleverly done. So props to yourself for this. But I was watching it, like I said, with my friend Scott the other day, and what's really cool is his first time watching it ever. And when Stephen Dorff goes outside, and they're like, "Hey, we're back," he said, "That's not his parents." He knew that. He knew that before. So it's clever, like the storytelling there. And
it's the enchantment. It's the enchantment. There's an aura about the whole thing.
Because that's not his parents. And I started laughing instantly when he said that's not his parents. I was like, you don't know what's coming. And that line, "You've been bad." I mean, was that on the script initially?
I think so, but I can't remember for sure. But it's my friend who was in a punk rock band that I was producing. He's the one that did the voice for that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine he's in a bar somewhere at some point telling people, "You haven't seen the gate."
Yeah.
Do it again. That's absolutely brilliant. So when you were on set, we've spoken to a lot of different producers and directors, and a lot of the time, most of the projects that they do are positive. Sometimes there can be about a couple of snags. Was there any really stressful points for you where you were like, right, or was there really times where you were like, this is amazing, this is the dream job, and that parallel, was it all mainly one side or the other?
Well, it's usually when you're working on a movie, it's all about it's full of grief and how can I say, compromise, like the challenges that are being thrown at you are constantly pushing you here and there. Very, very stressful. That was a very stressful shoot for all the people involved, like myself and Randy. There was so much to do in such little time, but thank goodness for all the preparation. It's almost as if, we had a blueprint and we were going through and executing that blueprint because we had so much time to prepare. I don't know if you know that story, that we were supposed to start shooting in October or November, and the thing got delayed by 6 months, by some financial stuff. And they kept us on. And so Randy and I prepared and just basically worked out every single thing that we were going to do. And that's what I think is the key to the success of the movie, and its longevity, even, in the quality that was able to be put into it, because it was planned perfectly and then executed, as well as we could, but there was good planning behind it.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of those, like you can say, "Oh, go watch these movies from the 80s," and sometimes you can watch them now and be like, right, maybe in the 80s, but the gate is still, it holds up.
It created its own universe, I think.
I absolutely see if the gate was to become like a new Amazon original series, where even just in the same town with different characters, I would be all over that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah,
Kevin, you've just shut up. This can't go out live, right? This is a multi-million-dollar idea.
Well, I really, I think it would be, and as well.
I think it's called Stranger Things, isn't it?
Right, kind of. But no, I think with the success of Stranger Things,
there's one thing that does date the movie, and it's Kelly Rowan's hair.
Oh yeah. Some of the hair, the makeup, but also, it gives it a kind of weird charm as well for me. When I watch it, I don't know, if we had it more neutral, it would be kind of vanilla. It would have to have been vanilla if it was more neutral. It's sort of the fun of, it dates it, but what the hell,
I think what I mean to say is that it's the only thing that makes you realize it's the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got she's almost got like a reverse female mullet. You know? Because it's party at the front and business at the back.
Business at the back. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty awesome to kind of see that, because the success of Stranger Things has people wanting more of that kind of thing. But that enchantment, what you're saying, I think there's still room for more. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what people
haven't changed. They still need their enchantment.
Yeah, and I think
I don't know if video games are giving it to them. But some of them might be.
I know that for sure. The TV series, there's not a lot of TV series. Maybe I would say Stranger Things is pretty much the only thing that kind of gives that. The new It movies had that enchantment. The remakes. But like I say, there's not a lot of it out there, and I think people would be all over that. So did you have any kind of real big challenges when it came to making the movie? Obviously, it was set back 6 months, which you say obviously kind of gave you guys.
Just trying to do all those effects in all that time, in the short time, like 20, I think it's 20 days, 22 days. I can't remember exactly. 23 maybe. I don't know. But it was a roller coaster, and the kids had to be in school. You know? And they're in the whole movie all the time. It's like to work the logistics of that out. That was incredible. And, kudos to our first AD and all the people that organized that. But we had lots of doubles, like body doubles, hand doubles. Splitting the time among the kids. When you were over the shoulder, it's probably a double. Always. And then. Working logistics of that out, and then plus Randy needing the kids all, for his shots at the same time that, the kids are needed on the main set. So, and there's only certain, very few hours that the kids could work. I can't remember. It was like 6 hours of tops in a day. That's, wow, very short. And I remember for Randy, it would take him a whole day. Well, the way it was kind of organized was that we had these huge elaborate sets. He had a sound stage where they were building all that, and he was sort of supervising that. Meanwhile, I was doing the rest of the movie on location and in the other stage. And whenever he would need the kids, which is usually at the end of the day, I could give him 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes. We run over to the other set, and Randy had this whole elaborate set all built and everything, and lit and ready to go, and plop the kids in. Shoot, and then suddenly they have to go to after they turn into pumpkins, they got to go home. It's like 5 minutes, and almost every shot you see is really just a test. It's not really the finish. Like, we'd like to go back and refine it.
The one thing that you said there was about obviously having limited time with the kids on set and using body doubles. So over the shoulder shots was pretty much never the actual child actor. Is that still common now?
I'm sure, but we had a especially difficult time. We had 2 cameras. We're shooting film.
Celluloid's expensive.
and I think things are happening a little faster on sets these days. But I don't know. It's took a lot longer to light. Cameras were finicky, heavier, maybe. You could say harder to move around. The process was more elaborate.
Did you see something special in a young Stephen Dorff? Could you see him?
Yeah, we had massive casting. We had a great casting director, Mary Gail Arts. She really combed North America looking for kids, and then we did some screen tests in LA, and Steve was really exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
He stood out.
He has that little Elliot kind of
Yeah.
his own kind of Elliot, and I think
Yeah.
we all related to Elliot. So
I mean, you look at. I mean, he went on to. I mean, he was so charismatic and things like obviously Blade. I mean, playing
Yeah.
the main villain in Blade. I didn't even know it was the same guy until I think I watched The Gate maybe 6-7 years ago. And I seen the name come up at the start, Stephen Dorff. I was like, "Oh, who's he in this?" I was like, "Oh, it's the main kid."
Yeah.
It just made me feel old as shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's critical. Do you keep in contact?
A little bit. You know, over the years, we bumped into each other a few times. You know, he appreciates the experience, and so do I. He was great to work with. He really was very adaptable. He was serious about what he was doing. Even you know, when he was a kid, he was really focused on it. And then I had the help of my friend Carl Cranes, who was a kind of a coach for the kids, so that when they were waiting for us, which happens a lot on a movie set, they would stay focused, or you know, they wouldn't get into mischief or whatever, but they would be concentrating on their parts and, you know, rehearsing or training or doing exercises, stuff like that. That also helped a lot keep the kids focused, and they were all focused. I think the performances from all the kids are really good.
I mean,
I really like Lewis Tripp as well. He's really good fun. And by the way, when I was watching it, remember, see the bit where he's kind of rocking out in his room and then he puts the thing over his. I was like, Silence of the Lambs stole that shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's quite the thing to work with kids, but see, to do a movie successfully and have kids be the lead, I think that gets kind of overlooked as well. Like the very first It remake was all kid cast. Do you find it hard? Like, obviously you've done many other movies since then where you're working with adult cast. What was the difference? Obviously there's a clear difference, but in contrast, were the kids any harder to work with than the adults, or do you find working with kids better?
I don't know, better or worse. They all have their benefits and drawbacks, you know. Working with kids is magical, and you know, they don't bring a lot of baggage. They're very malleable. They listen a little better than adults, but then adults bring all this experience, and you know, they can make your shitty dialogue look amazing, you know. Or sound amazing. I mean,
yeah, it's like everything's got its pros and cons, I suppose.
Absolutely, and I enjoy working with either one. You know, like I don't think I can't think of any negative experiences that I've had, even though, you know, some people were deemed difficult that I'd worked with, but I never encountered that. You know.
So there's the old Hollywood adage that it's like, "I'll never work with kids and animals." Now, kids and animals feature quite heavily, and
now animals are a different story. They're much harder to work with, but then again, it has to be. I think if you approach it in a way that the animal will do what it wants to do, you can have a general idea about what you would like it to do, but then whatever it does, film it. And then adapt your story to make it work. You know,
the party scene.
Yes.
The party scene. I could have sworn that was just filmed, because I mean, I've got a dog, and you just know when there's people in the house, the dog just the dog tries to pretend he's not there, then all of a sudden his face is in a bowl of chips.
Yeah.
And it felt so organic. There's a piece of trivia on IMDb about the dog. Now I just need to, I need to run through this for a second, because I'm not quite sure if I'm reading it correctly or if it's just bullshit. It says, when Eric was supposed to carry the body of Angus around the garden to be buried, the actor struggled to carry it because of the weight. So set designer John Baker brought it to a local taxidermist to have the organs removed to make it much lighter.
That's not really true. No,
that's on IMDb, dude. That's somebody has to challenge some of that stuff.
There's a lot of weird stuff on there, but that's, you know, it's part of the fun.
As soon as I read that, I was like,
so they actually used a dead dog, yeah.
Just here, carry. I know you're getting paid.
we had a fake dead dog all the time.
Yeah. As soon as I read that, I was like, that is bullshit. Even in the 80s, they didn't make young actors carry dead animals around.
That's just somebody trying to create some, like, hey, look, I invented that. That's cool. People believe it.
I think right now we're kind of seeing a bit of a resurgence of like physical media, something that J-Mac and myself kind of look at. And I've seen there are really, really cool versions of this. Would you ever be open to doing, panel shows or something to kind of prop up the next release, say it be a 4K? Because by the way, the picture on this was amazing. I was sitting there like, because I remember watching like a cassette version, not like. But the thing is, and this I maybe watched that about 10 years ago, the cassette version, and I remember going, it's not, it doesn't have.
Yeah, I can talk a little about that, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a Lionsgate DVD.
This one, Lionsgate, yeah.
Okay. So they hired a colorist, a color time, for the doing this transfer, who had worked on the Godfather transfer.
That'll
do. This guy, he had an appreciation for doing a great job, and they allowed me to kind of tweak it a little because they wanted to keep the authentic 80s thing. By taking the negative and just doing a direct transfer and don't make too many adjustments.
Yeah.
But I felt that we have to think about what we remember, not how it rates against effects today. So I cleaned up a few things, just minor things that were too distracting that took you out of the experience, because some of the matte lines became visible. I don't know if that was the deterioration of the internet or whatever they were using, but we did some color correction here and there. And the color timer had a lot of work to do just to make it a little bit smoother than it was.
Yeah.
In the theater, there's a lot of, like, I would say, kind of the process of projecting it onto a dim screen, gives it a kind of homogeneous quality. Like, and then when you do it at 4K or 2K and you project it on your TV, that's just like watching broken glass, really bright, you're going to see a lot of imperfections. And I think we were able to like tweak it a little so that it didn't have that distraction.
Yeah, there was an absolutely amazing job on this, because a lot of the time we will buy Blu-rays and stuff like from ET and stuff, and sometimes you don't really notice how great the picture is. You don't really pay attention to that, but that is absolutely one. I even said to my mate, I was like, wow, this was made in the 80s. I was like, look how good that is on this restoration. We've got Marv Dogger 2 here, says fun movie. I have the Vestron Blu-ray. That's what this is. I mean, it was by Lionsgate, but Vestron have kind of put it out and made a nice
we should give some credit to the original cinematographer. So
absolutely. I mean, it's just one of those things. This for me, sometimes, like, I mean, I'm quite bad for parting with money, but I was like, I'll definitely pay the $20 for. I say bucks, it's £20 in the UK. I don't know what that is in dollars. It's over £20.
That's about $26.
Yeah,
yes. For me, I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend that. But when I seen it was Blu-ray and it was the gate, sometimes you just got to stretch it, and I'm absolutely happy that I did, because it's totally worth it. Do you think, and for the rest of your career, do you think there'll ever be a return to the gate? Obviously, you got 1 and 2, but
I would like to see somebody doing it, I guess. Not necessarily myself. I think I put my 2 cents into it. I would like to be involved in it, but we'll have to see. I don't know. It feels like it's been it's now mired in some kind of issues with a film that was started but then not finished or something, like financed, so that the rights are kind of probably messed up or very expensive to try to get, all that kind of.
I see.
Let's talk about a couple of things here about the film itself. Now, the eye in the hand. Now that image scared the absolute shit out of me. I forgot about that one, but it did when I was a kid. I remember having nightmares about it, and then subsequently, actually drawing eyeballs onto my hand during class and stuff. And where did that come from? I mean, what did the demon do? What did it do?
It touched him in his head.
Well, I know, but it gave him a power. We had to somehow manifest it physically, I guess. Like it gave him insight or an extra sight, a third eye. We could have put it on his forehead, but maybe that's too hokey.
That was messed up, man. That's another little detail.
That when they, I saw giant posters from Malaysia, I think, the Far East, when the film was being shown, they used that image as the main poster.
Right.
Not the hand coming out like we have here, coming out of the ground. They used that hand with the eyeball in it. I saw a big rendition, like 3-story hand with an eyeball in it. It'd be amazing.
And what was even more disturbing was when he fucking stabbed it.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
He stabbed it, and I could feel the pain of stabbing an eyeball. I was like, nah, this is going way too far for a 6-year-old Kevin.
That's like a little bit of the Chien de Loup kind of vibe to it. Like
the one thing,
surreal.
Yeah, I would have thought. Right, every child wants superpowers. Why so quickly does he go to the glass and stab his own hand? I would have thought maybe he'd play about it, because there's another movie in itself. A child gets superpowers and no adults around.
I don't know. I don't think I'd ever wipe my ass again.
And that was an adult's hand, by the way.
I think that was Randy's hand, if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a great way to chat, if anybody ever challenged that and says, "Hey, wait a minute, that's not Stephen Dorff's hand." It's like, well, of course, the demon gave him insight and a bigger hand. Like we hand a big hand.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's just who knows? Who knows the possibilities of what he could have done with that insight?
Yeah,
and so the demon.
Yeah.
The demon for me, like that was. I take it they done that as well, filming
That's stop
guys
motion.
a lot.
That is stop motion.
Yeah, well done.
I said to you in an initial phone call, I said, I love this stuff with the minions and the kind of Ray Harryhausen stuff. And then it wasn't until I got off the call and watched the film again, I was like, shit, those minions aren't stop motion. Something is. There's something here that's stop motion, and it was the demon. But that's good stop motion. I mean, that's advanced stuff. It's even got he breathes, and that was something that was forgotten a lot when it came to stop motion back in the day. You look at Jason and the Argonauts and stuff like that. Nothing breathes. That demon actually took a breath.
They were skeletons.
No. There was a 7-headed snake thing, and tried to get me.
Skeletons, they don't. Do you know the really cool? It made me laugh as well. Is it stop motion when the rocket goes into the chest? Yeah, and you just kind of see it open up and go in. It's like almost like Play-Doh. I love it.
Actually, that's something that I think a lot of people, including myself, were kind of confused as to why that rocket was able to kill this all-powerful demon. Now, I think I have found an explanation for it somewhere, but I want you to run through it with us just to clarify it for anybody that wondered.
The rocket was a symbol of his relationship and his connection to his sister. She gave him the present that he wanted. It was like an emotional connection. Yeah. And in another movie, it would have been some sort of pendant, with a heart in it. But this being, a kid's movie and the rocket played into it. The rocket was a gift. It was like, the rocket's mentioned many times. Source of mischief in the family, some controversy. She threw out the rocket, so it came to sort of symbolize this sort of separation between him and his sister. And he used that sort of the representation of that relationship, the emotional charge, the positive energy, and that's what killed the monster, not dynamite or gasoline or whatever.
So that's it. So it's like it's a symbol of kind of love and hope and connection. That's what destroys evil. at the end of the day. And
it's like the Exorcist kind of thing.
yeah, that's it. I'm quite lucky. I mean, I've got a brother who's 6 years older than me, but he was always very, very nice to me. I'm so lucky that I had that really. I had the relationship with my brother that Glenn had with his sister. I had that growing up, so I've always considered myself very lucky in that respect, that I had an older sibling who always had time for me, and still does. So thanks, man.
What was your explanation, J-Mac? What was your thought when the rocket killed the demon?
Well, I never really thought about it too much because I watched it when I was a kid, and I was just like, all right, rocket, it got it in the heart. That's it. It was what was in my mind. He must have shot it right in the heart, and that kills anything. So
evil doesn't have a heart, though, does it?
Ah, shut up. Next one.
Absolutely. I mean, the legacy of The Gate is, if you're a horror fan and you're a fan of movies from the 80s, you're definitely going to know it. I did actually. I was talking to someone recently who we know fairly well. His name's Gary Smart. He does a lot of. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he creates documentaries, and he'll take. Like he's making the Robert Englund documentaries, making RoboDoc. He does documentaries on like really great movies, stuff like Fright Night and stuff. And when I had messaged him about, I said, mate, I says, you know who Tibor Takács is, right? He's like, straight away, yeah, man, The Gate. so it's like there is a lot of us out here, even though like The Gate, it's not something you see when you're scrolling Netflix. There's still a big fan base of that. Do you think that, you know, the legacy of The Gate is being a child and watching it and kind of carrying that through to adulthood, or do you think it's just that much of a masterpiece that's kind of hard to forget?
I think it's a combination of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to consider it a masterpiece, but there's a lot of craft involved.
Oh, definitely.
And and it's also sort of taps into the story, taps into our development as from childhood to adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it catches you at the right time, boy, you're stuck in there.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, that there were still scenes in it that I found unsettling, even as a 36-year-old guy. And actually, one thing, there was one scene that really stood out for the effects more than anything else, and it was when Terry had gone down the gate, and he stamped on one of the minions, and it just started freaking out. But I'm assuming that there was like that was a forced perspective shot, and there was his foot, and then there was the other foot that was mechanized in some way. Maybe
there was a giant foot.
Yeah, it looks amazing. It really does. There's, as a kid, you watch that and go, that's tiny dudes. But even
that film Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Say again, sorry.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
It's a Disney film from the early 60s. That's Sean Connery's first movie. It's a Disney movie, and
I guess he plays Darby.
No, he doesn't play Darby. Another old character actor who's pretty amazing. It's a great movie, and that was a lot of inspiration from that movie for The Gate, actually, for the effects in The Gate. And it's about leprechauns.
So we are both massive movie fans and Scottish movie fans, and we've never heard of Sean Connery's first movie.
Well,
I feel like we've betrayed ourselves.
That's the beauty of the film world.
Yeah.
You're constantly finding and discovering new things. That. It's a treat waiting for you.
I'm going to get hold of that. I'm getting hold of that.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
There we go.
We'll maybe do a watch along with that. We've been doing quite a few watch alongs recently. So I can see here that you've got a few projects in pre-production. You've got Blowback, Roadkill, and Black Warrant. Is there anything you can kind of tell the audience?
I've always strive to dabble in many different genres. I just don't like to just do the same thing over and over again. So,
Yeah.
my heroes are all directors that have done, a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? I thought I'd turn this off. Oh, that's okay. Sorry.
See, if you answered that and went, "You've been bad," I'd have been like,
that could be you guys putting a prank on me. Yeah.
Yes. that would have been something.
That would have been good. That's a good thing.
I'd love that. See, if you're just like, "Oh, hold on a second, guy," and put it on loudspeaker. You've been an opportunity missed.
Yeah. What were we talking about before the bloody phone?
You were saying about how
my career, like being diversified and trying to be dabbling in a lot of different genres. I mean, there's a director, Norman Jewison. Do you know who that is? I don't know. He's a Canadian guy. He was in Hollywood. He did a lot of different movies, a lot of different genres, comedies, serious dramas. That's the kind of career I would aspire to. I know that's almost like very difficult these days, unless you're an auteur, but I just have fun, and I get to do a heist movie or a bank robbery movie, and then I get to do Christmas movies.
Yeah, you've done some good kind of monster movies recently as well.
Spiders.
Yeah, a lot of spiders. Yeah, some spider stuff going on. I mean, let's face it. These films, without I'm not going to cause offense, but they're never going to win Oscars. But they're fucking fun. That's what these movies. They're made for fun.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun making them, and we had a lot of fun making The Gate. I mean, with all the trouble and everything, that's what fun is, really, is when you're challenged and you rise to the challenge, get through it, and oh my god.
Yeah. Your work has actually been a huge part of my childhood, not just for The Gate, because when I grew up after watching The Gate from being 6-year-old, I then binged Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh yeah,
that was a daily thing for me.
Crush.
Absolutely. Salem the Cat was the best, but man, in the UK, that for us was
a big series around the world, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. We watched it every day.
You've seen the movie, the original movie that the series.
Yeah.
I actually haven't.
Well, you should check it out. I think it's enchanting. It's
yes. Yes.
Has it got that pink purple stuff in it? If it's not got the pink purple stuff, I'm not watching.
It comes from her finger. It comes from her finger. Heather Dowse says
there might be a moment. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of conventions when we go and cover it. We do convention coverage, and Melissa Joan Hart is there quite often. So it'd be pretty cool to say that we've had this conversation next time we see him. Do you ever catch up with any of the guys from Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
I've talked to her over the years. We tried to do some projects together, they never quite came together, but she's great to work with and very, very talented, I think, and smart. And her mother, Paula Hart, who's the producer, also,
Wow.
And they've managed to sort of keep things going, and they're very busy these days. And I think Melissa's directing now, which I told her right from the beginning. I said, when she was a kid, I said, "Hey, you should get interested in behind the camera," because I had a feeling about her that she wasn't just a performer. She's pretty smart, and she's got the aptitude for being a director. I felt that.
Yeah, she's definitely talented, and she was a big part of our childhood. Did you catch the Sabrina series on Netflix?
Oh yeah, I caught a few episodes of that. Yeah.
You like it?
That's all right. It's like, but who would have thought? And I think someone proposed that to me that the universe, the Archie comics universe. What was the name of the other series? What was it called? Archie, or there was another series before that, wasn't it? With Jughead and everybody. What was that called? Before the Sabrina's a spin-off of that other,
The Archie thing is very American, right?
Yeah,
but I'm sure I do know the answer to this. It's in here somewhere.
The town, the name of the town. What's the name of the town in Archie Comics? Anyways,
Anybody in the comments?
Yeah. So that was it was a series based on that, and the spin-off. I think the Archie Comics people are really they really sort of have tight reins on and are very clever in the way they allow people to make these movies, how they share their how they monetize the rights, with the certain characters, and they're able to hang on to everything and control it. And it was, I think it was insightful of them. I don't know who convinced them to do the dark version, which was pretty cool. But I think it's for the next movie, which
nice.
starts not at my place, but I have to drive there.
Yeah, it sounds fun. So it's been absolutely great speaking to you, Tibor. Can't thank you enough for your time.
Out. Hey, thank you. Yeah, keep in touch
pleasure.
as well. This could be a whole series of fun. You never know.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And your next projects as well, if you want to come on and talk about them, there's many people that'll be enjoying this show that'll be loving to hear about it. So all we got to say is thanks very much for that, Tibor, and you are welcome on the show anytime, mate.
Okay,
it's been an absolute pleasure.
Okay,
thanks very much, Tibor.
Likewise.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Before we go, J-Mac, there is an announcement for our next episode. And our next episode is going to be a really, really big one for us. One of my favorite movies, aside from The Gate. We have a really, really big producer from Hollywood coming on to talk about one of my favorite movies. So, in closing, again, guys, go and check out Tibor's other work and make sure you follow him on social media. J-Mac done it. Don't call him. Don't just randomly call him, or do if you have a podcast, because it works out perfect for you.
But only if you look like Ron fucking Perlman.
Again, huge thanks to Tibor. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I never thought I'd be able to do that. So absolute pleasure. So we will leave you with this wee video to let you know of our next guest on the Jibber Jabber podcast. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.